Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Welcome back to the Think Small podcast. My guest today is a very special guest. Welcome Mia Simion from Eli Lilly, the International Business Unit HR Senior Business Partner, and recently promoted to Country Manager for Bulgaria. Mia, welcome to the podcast. Why don't we start by you just sharing a little bit about how you got your start with Eli Lilly, because you've been there a fair bit of time now.
Glad to. So my full name is Anamaria Roxana Simion, and I've worked for Lilly for now almost 14 years, 13 and a bit. So I'm Romanian, and I joined Lilly in Spain in the marketing organization. And I basically spent about 8 years in the marketing organization. So on the commercial forefront in different geographies, doing different types of launch events and, marketing for different life cycle of products. And then, I joined Lilly in 2012 as an intern, and then 2013 as a full-time employee. And that's kind of important because those were the years when Lilly was losing a lot of patents. And 2013, 14, 15, 16 were kind of the years YZ, basically patent cliffs, no launch, disaster. So from an HR standpoint, even though I wasn't in HR at the time, you could tell, the culture was going through some massive shocks. A number of people obviously went down. All of a sudden, you wouldn't backfill certain roles, or there wouldn't be opportunities where in the past there would be. And then slowly from 2016 onwards, you kind of had a very slow recovery, meaning we had more launches, so more things to talk about and solutions to bring to patients across the world. We entered different therapeutic areas, which was also interesting to see how the company was moving from 1 to 2 to max 3 therapeutic areas, right? We basically had presence in psychiatry, diabetes, and something in oncology. We shut down some and we added other therapeutic areas. So that brought in some workforce from different backgrounds. And then we switched from a very small synthetic molecule to large biological products, which is another type of mindset, commercial model, go-to-market model. To fast forward 22, when I think it started changing with this drug for diabetes, Trulicity, that was launched and was doing really well. And then tirzepatide, Mounjaro, or Zepbound were launched, which indications in 2020 were already pretty, this is going to be big. And rightly so. But it kind of caught the organization by surprise, right? We were about a 50,000, 45,000 people organization at the time with 1 or 2 manufacturing sites, middle size, the smallest of the big ones is kind of how you would call it. And then around earlier in 2020, right before the pandemic, I joined HR. It was more of an assignment from a talent management leadership development standpoint. I was there to lead a team of 8 people that were representing HR leadership functions for 16 countries. And this happened around the time of the pandemic. So excellent learning opportunity as HR. And then I got to see, this was Central Eastern Europe. I got to see in 22 the start of the conflict in Ukraine. And then I got that affiliate as an additional responsibility. So it was a general HR role. But bottom line, everybody was slowly growing. It was very minor incremental change that you would see from a year to the next. Maybe add 1 person here, cut 1 person there, add some skills, but not too many. It was more of slow change and adaptation. So we basically kind of took what we had and slightly made it better every year. And then 22 came, tirzepatide launched, boom, amazing success in the United States. They launched first. There were lots of supply issues. So the company couldn't supply all the affiliates. Therefore, there were so-called waived launches, meaning some affiliates launched before others. And I think it took about 4 years before every affiliate, was given the green light to launch finally this great product. And that from a cultural standpoint was a tough moment, right? Everybody could feel the greatness, but some people felt more equal than others, let's say. And at the same time, there were some, because of the supply concerns, we basically overnight lost our main drug supply and were told, listen, for the next 6 to 9 months, you will have to survive with something else. And that was a bit of a hit. That was a big hit. Also, culturally speaking, you had teams who were doing not that much, who were still needing to be engaged, and teams that were doing over and above what they had done before, who were getting the same kind of recognition. Anyway, and then I moved from the HR function in 23 into corporate strategy. So I got to do projects that had enterprise-wide impact. And so we built playbooks for how to build manufacturing sites and, integrated business planning to make sure that we never have these problems of forecasting and demand versus supply discrepancies ever again, building the AI organization footprint and governance and everything. So 2 years of very intense, fun, completely different type of work. And then I came back to HR in the role where you met me, which I have also now left, but I will tell you about it in a second. Within Lilly, we have, this is public knowledge, we have some division of geographies and commercial footprint. So everything that's outside of the United States, commercially speaking, is clumped into one international business unit. So this international business unit comprises of about 10,000 employees that are commercially focused. And then there's another 10,000 probably that are more not indirectly working with this organization. So my role was to coordinate centrally, basically HR processes for all of these 10,000 employees who were, let's say, grouped in organizations across, like you would have a hub and another hub and another hub. And then my role was to make sure planning for the next year happens in the same way, on the same time. Talent management is visible to everybody. Promotions and coaching and leadership development and all that stuff. And on top of that, I also had a small affiliate that also was my HR business partner role.
Yeah, I love how simple you make it seem, right? Because it's almost like in one sentence you say, yeah, like I was creating processes for, tens of thousands of employees, but, just like making sure that we were doing reviews on an annual basis and making sure that, the culture was aligned with what the mission of the company was. And the way that you explain it, it seems like it's just so understandable that it's like this massive entity has the same HR goals as any other company, just on a larger scale, which is refreshing, but also very impressive the way that you kind of approach, like I said, it's truly a large enterprise, and very, very cool. I have a question. So I know that Eli Lilly changed its model and went into this sort of mergers and acquisition phase where they started buying up companies. Were you part of creating cohesive culture within those acquisitions? Is that part of the structure, or do they mainly leave the subsidiaries alone and then have them sort of operate in their own ecosphere?
That's a great question. So to be honest, I think it's now that it's more visible in the last 2 to 3 years that we were doing mergers and acquisitions, but we've been doing them. Lilly's been doing them for about 10 years now, just increasingly more and more visible.
Larger sizes.
Yeah. I think it's been an evolution, right? So number one, I was not directly involved, and I was involved in the group that basically oversees. So there's someone at some point, I know who, but I can't say, decided, you know what, if we are going to look to merger and to get more acquisitions, we need to start having a more standardized way of how we approach these things. Like it's all tailor-made at the end of the day. Like the terms of the contract are always quite tailored, but there's a way that you can represent yourself towards a partner. And then there's an important way of how you communicate, this is what we will do with your people. That has to be aligned to the same principles of respect for people, integrity, and all those things. At the same time, you have major differences in culture. So I think we've evolved in the last 4 to 5 years from a very one to a little more standardized process, meaning there's a value proposition of Lilly as an employer that everyone has to buy into. Like you join Lilly, this is what you're getting. You're getting access to this infrastructure, you're getting these benefits, you're getting this culture, and the expectation is that you sign up for it. But no one is like forcing down your throat. You now have to, punch in every morning. Not that we do this, but so the way most of the mergers and acquisitions, they are either kept frozen in terms of number of people for a period of time, while we decide, okay, who fits in different parts of the organization. And more recently, we're proactively, I've seen more proactiveness in putting certain leaders in certain functions so that they really embed that innovation into the fiber of the, traditional classic Lilly organization. So if you look at our business development leader and oncology business unit leader at the global level comes from one of these acquisitions that was done maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago.
So it kind of leads me into another question around what kind of qualities you're looking for from executive leadership when you're filling spaces and reorganizing those kinds of groups, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think the focus on leadership development and leadership evolution in the company has been only increasing in the last 4 to 5 years. You'll see this if you just look at the executive committee leaders. But if you drill down a little bit, what you see is people who are able to have a growth mindset no matter what, open to feedback no matter what, and able to drive large outcomes with large teams. So people who are good coaches or excellent coaches, really, and drive organizational evolution. They have to be, generally speaking, change agents. So not so much rule followers or, hey, I have to have a clear blueprint. I thrive in exact space. It's more the opposite, like people who are able to imagine what should be and, painfully or not, bring it to life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that growth mindset or growth at all cost, right? Like pretty cool. One of the things that popped in my head was around managing culture, creating cohesive culture around a global company. Seems exceptionally challenging, right? I mean, you're talking about even within Europe, individual employees or even groups of employees have different cultural norms. I was wondering, how does that kind of impact your approach to creating a cohesive culture, even though in the United States, I have, and on a personal note, I'm buying a house. So I have a realtor and he's German and he's been on vacation for 4 weeks and he's got another like 3 weeks that he's still like away. And I'm like, but he's been in America for 15 years or so, 20 years. I'm like, you've still embracing a very European approach to like going on a holiday. The United States is like, you're going away for 5 days, but I'll check my email. Don't worry. Right. So,
yeah.
So I'm just curious about what that's like with managing different cultures within the globe from a workforce perspective. And how do you, I don't know, it feels like most Lilly employees probably value the fact that they're Lilly employees. Just trying to piece together that.
Yeah, so I think you have to value what you have in common and also what you bring different. So I think on a very logistical standpoint, the way you do it is by having, plus 10% deviation from any process. So you don't allow for a lot of deviation from critical processes. Like critical to the mission processes are largely the same whether you're in Bulgaria, where I'm going now as a country manager, or in the United States, where you have the headquarters. So loosely speaking, it's the same philosophy. So you build that into the DNA, the same philosophy, the same values, and then the same leadership expectations. And that in itself is a good core that you pretty much control what can come out of it. And so everyone is welcomed and everyone brings their own culture, but you kind of know within Lilly, this is what you're getting. And so you can come bring your best self to work. You can be authentic. No one is going to, it's a bit like a democracy, right? You call a democracy, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt another. Mm-hmm. So you can bring everything you want to Lilly as long as it serves the purpose, the same mission within the rules that we have, and you don't hurt another, clearly. So I don't think you try to control the uncontrollables. You want to control the controllables. Like I'm not going to control, I don't know, when you go and pray or what you do personally and from a spiritual standpoint or mindset standpoint. But what I am going to control is, your pay philosophy, your benefit philosophy. And so you don't create huge discrepancies. There are differences, of course. And from a cultural standpoint, I think it's also a very intentional effort that the company started a long time ago, way before I even joined probably, to build scalable cultural events and scalable cultural ideas and aspects. Like you have this idea of whatever, Team Lilly or Global Leadership Conference. And so you calibrate everyone the same way. I think that's what it is. You calibrate people with the same values and principles, and then you expect the best. Like, if it works, great. Usually people check out if they already decide it's not for them. Make it sound a little bit like a sect. It's not that. It's more driven by the realities of the time. So now, obviously, AI is everywhere. And if you want to say embrace AI, you have to show how you do it, right? And every part of the organization has that as an objective, right? The way we set objectives is also very aligned among functions because it's very high level. So every function will feel the benefits and the responsibility to use technology in their day-to-day work. And similarly, they'll feel the pressure of embracing certain principles, because you probably know this, we're probably the leanest of big pharma, like compared to Novo, we're at least 30% fewer people, Novo being our most immediate competitor. And intentionally, that's kept so. So every person basically has to evolve into a different way of action and doing their job. Otherwise, you just suffer too much.
Yeah, totally. I think you have a very unique perspective of the company because you've been there through an incredible growth period of time, right? So it's definitely a very unique perspective. Are you excited about your new role and being a country leader?
Absolutely. I think so. The other thing that I hear from others is quite unique is how free flow a bit is talent management, meaning there's not like a functional silo all the time. There is, of course, HR leaders who grow to HR leaders. There are finance leaders who grow into finance leaders. But then there are, degrees of freedom where if you really want to be an enterprise leader, you are given the chance and the credit to try different parts of the organizations. For example, I'm now going to be a profit and loss leader. I have been an HR leader for a while, which is a very strategic function. I was a capability leader. I was a marketing leader to an extent. And all of these steps are quite intentional, but also self-guided. Like, I signed up. I said, okay, HR, why not? Sounds great. Let's do it. And I learned a lot and I love it. I think that perspective comes from experience, right? You see it by trying different things. And country management is just an honor, honestly. It's a responsibility, of course, but it's an honor because you're very close, right? And you're in a position to really directly negotiate with authorities on things that impact people's lives at the end of the day and the healthcare system overall. And that's very powerful. I think being one of the difficult parts for me, truly, about being in HR is that I was very it felt really far from the mission, from, making life better for patients. In HR, you're very strategic, but you're kind of far from that. Like, you don't see the results, you don't see the effects. When you're in the commercial part, it's much more feedback immediate. And as a country manager right now, I think there's no such thing as a small affiliate or, it's not like it was 7 years ago where you had like very specific target populations. Like, you maybe, we're thinking of, we'll treat 2,000 patients. Now it's more like, we'll treat 5 million patients, or like the obese population in Bulgaria, a country of almost 7 million, is 1.5 million. So it's a very high degree of magnitude. Number of people who are actually being treated is, in the 10,000 space. So plenty of opportunity to make an impact. I love it. It's making an impact at the end of the day. As HR, you have an impact. As a country manager, you have an impact. They're just different lenses.
Yeah. So on a personal note as well, what I do professionally, I write group health insurance. I'm an employee benefits broker, right? So I naturally, the reason why I think our conversation makes sense is because I have sort of a back end knowledge of healthcare, especially in the United States. And I kind of floated around in different industries before I came into employee benefits. And one of the most impactful parts of it was realizing that I was truly making an impact on healthcare, access to care, things like that. So I know exactly, I can kind of relate with you, different scale, but I can relate with you on what like the mission is, and the ultimate mission is wellness, and making sure that people are being taken care of and getting treatment and getting better. Right. So, and it's an incredible responsibility to steward. And when it's done well, you make the difference. You truly make life-saving differences.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in HR, we also sit in a place where you see more closely the impact on people's professional lives of a given disease or condition. I remember a while ago, we had a colleague who unfortunately passed away from breast cancer. And we didn't make that public, but people knew because she was close to people. And we just wrote a message that was along the lines of, whoever wants to join, we will be celebrating her life. And at the end, it was something along the lines of, it's important to prevent, so make sure you always have your regular checkup. And because people knew what we were talking about more generally, this was an organization of 40 people. Okay, so it's a very small organization. Of those 42, actually were prompted to go and get a mammogram, and both came back with positive results for breast cancer. So they went treatment. It took them, a year and a half in one case to get over. But, the fact that, and it was an HR kind of initiative to just do something simple, really led the way to impacted individuals right there and then, which is very powerful. I think we have the power to tell stories of internal customers, if you will, or colleagues, not just external to Lilly.
Yeah, that's a great story. A lot of the times when people think about HR, especially as like an individual, they think of HR like you don't
Police.
want to deal with them. Right. Yeah. Like police for sure. And that's a really interesting and like impactful story about how, you put out a release and just like let people know, hey, we're mourning a colleague of ours. Part of that is getting tested and making sure that you're proactive about your own health. And
by the way, you have this benefit.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. With your company, it's so large that there's not even one person that could really describe the culture better than just grabbing an individual, right? Like, hey, tell me about your experience. Because like when you're talking to a company that has 50 employees or 100 employees, any one person, the CEO is probably going to say, hey, this is what my company does. This is how we got to where we are. But with a company, with an enterprise level organization, you could pretty much talk to anybody and say, hey, like, tell me about what your experience is. And they give you a really good, background on it. So Mia, thank you so much for your time. We're coming up on the half hour right now.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?